In my last video, I mentioned that I've watched well over 2,000 hours of live plays, and some of the reactions to that is, those are rookie numbers. You gotta get those numbers up.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket. I myself, I jerk off at least twice a day. Wow.
Do you understand how much of my life that is? That is 50 work weeks of just watching live plays. When I say it out loud like that, it's kind of, well, I'm getting paid to do this. What are you doing with your life? That aside, I have watched tons of live plays. I have watched Dimension 20, I've watched Critical Role, I've watched some of the Adventure Zone, though not as much as I should have, as well as a ton of other indie live plays. Point is, I've watched a lot of them, and I've enjoyed quite a bit. But there's one particular thing I've noticed. People hail two specific shows as the king of live plays. It's Dimension 20 versus Critical Role. I mean, I myself have actually titled the video like that, so yeah, obviously I'm a little bit of a perpetrator of that. But the point is, people consider those two to be the big boys. And yes, I do think the Adventure Zone could be thrown in there, but when it comes to just straight up viewership numbers, it's really hard to deny that Critical Role and Dimension 20 are huge in the scene. And with that being said, I've noticed something specifically. See, Critical Role is known for these long, massive, year-spanning campaigns with long, overarching character arcs, stories, and plot threads. Meanwhile, Dimension 20 likes to keep it concise. They like to make their specific campaigns and make it just that. It's just a season, usually just about 12 to 13 episodes or sessions of about maybe an hour to 2 hours long. They like to keep it clean, simple, and concise. So why am I talking about this? Well, because Dimension 20 does that, they have to bring in a draw for each of their seasons. Each season has new characters, so there has to be something that's marketable. I mean, let's be honest, it's a business, so yeah, they have to bring in viewership numbers. And how do they do that? Themed campaigns. Now, the reason I really wanted to talk about themed campaigns is, as many of you probably know, I've been reviewing the series A Crown of Candy, which is season 5 of Dimension 20. And it's amazing. It's a Candyland themed campaign that's also based around Game of Thrones. And like, how do you beat that? That's such a fun concept. But the world building has been some of the most in-depth I've ever seen. And it's about Candyland.
Behold, Calorum. Many years passed. The ravening war raged across the 6 kingdoms. The war ended 20 years ago with the creation of the Concord.
And so looking at that, I began to think, what's the point of running themed campaigns? Is it worth it? Because let's be honest, in order to make themed campaigns, specifically in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, which both of these shows run, though maybe Critical Role may not be running it for that much longer, take a look at their new RPG that they're about to come out with. I should make a video on that. God, I'm a YouTuber. I should make a video on that. Point is, if you look at that and consider how Critical Role does that, but then look at Dimension 20, Dimension 20 has to use Dungeons & Dragons, and they have to fit all of their themed campaigns to the D&D rules, which are obviously not made for those themes. I mean, they've done things like, oh, storybooks in Fantasyland. They've done things like, oh, it's D&D, but in the Unsleeping City, New York. Or they've done Fantasy High, where it's D&D, but it's in a high school. Point is, they always have to adapt the rules. That's kind of how it works. And while Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is incredibly flexible, there's been a pretty consistent complaint that you shouldn't just try to make everything D&D 5e. Sometimes you should expand systems. And I think that is a perfectly valid criticism of Dimension 20. But that being said, there is something to be said about restrictions, about the incredible creativity that comes when working within limitations, the bounds of a system. And I think that's what I want to talk about today. So let's talk about it. So when looking specifically at A Crown of Candy, because that's the series I'm currently reviewing, you find a massive amount of world building. Seriously, the amount of lore that was put into this Candyland campaign is insane. And also, they're about to do a prequel series DM'd by Matthew Mercer. So there's a lot of reasons to talk and get excited about Crown of Candy right now. But
what have we here?
But the world building, it is incredible how often I mess up my own words. I wish my brain was able to think at the same speed that I talk. The world building is incredible. You get to see this entire world that is very Game of Thrones-esque. The politics that are put in are amazing. There's an entire plot thread about the fact that one Candy, the Kingdom of Candia, where all the main characters are from, gets excommunicated from the entire Concord, the rest of the world, because of the fact that there was a bastardized marriage. I mean, would you ever expect that kind of in-depth politics in a Candyland campaign? But it goes even further beyond this. The character descriptions and the character builds are all based within the restrictions of the world. Because it is Candyland, they all have to think, what kind of candy am I? How does that play into my abilities, my powers, my class? And I find that extremely fascinating and so worth looking into. Seriously, if you take a look and consider it, you could see between all of the characters the massive amount of world building and thought that was put in. Let's take Lou's character, King Amaranth. Amaranth is the streamer. No, not Amaranth, Amathar, King Amathar. King Amathar is a pop rock barbarian, specifically Path of the Storm. And he took specifically the fire portion of Path of the Storm. And how this works is because he's a pop rock barbarian, pours cola on himself and begins to pop and cause that fire to go everywhere.
You take the horn of Candia, splash yourself with cola, and the pop rocks of your body. In this aura of flame, the leaves of the peppermint trees catch fire as you rage.
That's so cool and so much fun. And later in the series, we end up meeting another one of Lou's characters. Now, brief spoilers for A Crown of Candy. I would skip ahead about 30 seconds here, but we find out that Lou's character actually has another bastard daughter who is an ice cream sorceress. Now, she's an ice cream sorceress because the person he had a baby with was somebody from the Dairy Isles. And so you mix candy and dairy and you get ice cream. See, it's so interesting to see them work within these bounds because when I look at the rules personally, I don't know about all of you, but when I look at them, I see the rules. I see, oh, I could do this much damage, or I can make this much mechanic happen. It's fun, but a little limited. But when you place limitations on it, suddenly it becomes so much more free, which is weird, right? But if I suddenly have to work with, I know that I'm a pop rock barbarian, what mechanics can make that work and fit thematically? It's so much more exciting, because no longer am I only looking for the biggest number, but instead how to make the biggest number within those limitations, which makes me go down paths I never would have even considered before. The freedom of exploring due to limitations. Now, the amazing thing about Crown of Candy is there's so much production value put into basically every Dimension 20 season. You could see so much on the minis, so much passion put into the sets, the battle pieces, everything. And if you want to make a themed set yourself, then I can recommend the sponsor for today, 1985 Games. Now, 1985 Games is an incredible TTRPG company that I've worked with for a long time and used a lot of their products. They're themed specifically around, well, 80s themed stuff, and it's so fun to see everything they have. One of my favorite products is actually the cassette dice, which comes in this cute little case that makes it look like it's a cassette tape, and the actual dice are inside, which is empty. Babe, did you steal my dice again? Regardless, whether it comes to maps, minis, or any other TTRPG products, they give so much passion into everything that they make, and I cannot recommend them enough. If you want to check them in the link below, you can go ahead and use my coupon code in order to get a discount code. They are amazing, and the more you help them out, the more you help the channel out, so it really means a lot to me. Anyways, back to the video. So, themed campaigns are not really my thing, I'll be honest, but seeing this, it really makes me want to run one. I think it is so exciting. I think it's really, really fun and something way worth exploring. And you get to see this across all of Dimension 20's campaigns. The Unsleeping City is such a fun one because everybody has to figure out how to play this fantasy character in New York.
Clear skies over the best skyline of any city that has ever been or will ever be. It is New York City, baby.
And so you have somebody who's a paladin, but also a firefighter, because that makes sense. Or you have somebody who's a monk, a drunken way monk, because they're a wine mob. I mean, that's fun. That's so exciting. And when you look at things like Critical Role, yes, they do build their characters in very unique and interesting ways, but I think they miss the punch and the flavor and the excitement with missing those themes. Now, I'm not bashing at one show or another. Both ways of playing are perfectly viable, and I personally run games much more similar and akin to Critical Role. That being said, a themed campaign is something that's been on my mind a lot recently because of, well, all of the limitless options due to the limited options. Now, that being said, there is something I have not quite touched on here, and it needs to be noted. There's a reason Dimension 20 runs short campaigns, because you can only go so far when it comes to the limitations you put on your players. A themed campaign will eventually run dry. And while yes, you could probably run it forever and ever and have fun, the novelty of it will wear off eventually. The purpose of it is to be bright, flashy, and exciting for a small amount of time, and not to take too much away from that. And so if you don't take that into account, I think you may end up hurting yourself in the long run. I think themed campaigns are definitely tailored towards shorter sessions. 12, 13, 14 sessions, maybe 20, but keep it concise. Don't limit yourself too much, because as a DM, the world building that is necessary for a themed campaign is massive. Seriously, Brennan doesn't do all the world building in the Dimension 20 shows. Instead, he has an entire team of people to help him with this stuff, because it is a lot to take in, and they do these seasons back to back to back. They do quite a bit of production value, a massive amount of production value, in fact, and so you have to be careful not to burn yourself out as a DM. Personally, I think it would be super fun to get a group together where each person runs a themed campaign while the next person works on one, and you just rotate DMs doing those themed campaigns. I think it's a fantastic, really fun idea. It doesn't always have to be this long-spanning story, and so many times I see people get sad and disappointed and tired because their long-spanning story didn't pan out because of scheduling issues. That's a real-world problem. You wanna know how you get around it? Don't give scheduling issues the opportunity to arise. Set yourself a time frame. Make those themed campaigns. I don't think this is the best way to play D&D, because there is no best way to play any TTRPG whatsoever. But I think it's a really fun one that could be explored so much more. Because Critical Role is more mainstream and easy to access simply because Dimension 20 is locked behind either YouTube memberships or Dropout, people tend to look at Critical Role and emulate that. But there's so many other ways to play TTRPGs, even outside of D&D. And I encourage everybody to do so, because you're really missing so much out on everything that could potentially be there. And I think it could be a massive amount of fun should you do it right. Anyways, if you want to watch more of my live play breakdowns or just generally more information about live plays, you can go to my catalog right there and go through my entire list, because I talk about this a lot and I'm very passionate about it. Go out into the world, make it your own, and if you like the video, please like and subscribe, you know, all the usual YouTube nonsense.